Dark cars, tired breath, and Jungkook's whispers, as Jimin answers egoism with a hug too warm to forget automobile black. Don't look back, just drive. The words cut through the rain-soaked silence, sharp and panicked, barely audible over the pounding of Jungkook's heartbeat and the screech of tires slicing through the drenched Seoul highway at 3:42 a.m. His voice was cracked, dry from hours of silence or maybe from screaming into his own head for too long. Beside him, Jimin sat frozen, one hand white-knuckled on the dashboard, the other clenched around a bloodied phone. The city lights blurred behind the streaked windows like ghosts chasing them, red and orange smears in the reflection of Jungkook's tear-glossed eyes. Thunder rolled above as if echoing the war inside his chest. Jimin didn't speak, not yet. He couldn't, not until he understood what Jungkook had just done. But the silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, thick with everything unspoken. The engine growled beneath them, desperate like a wounded animal running for cover. Rain hammered against the windshield like fists demanding answers. "Where is he?" Jimin's voice finally cracked through the storm, hoarse, low, terrified. Jungkook didn't answer. His jaw tightened. His fingers trembled on the steering wheel, stained with something darker than rainwater. That was the moment Jimin knew. Something irreversible had happened. And it had started hours earlier in the back alley of Club Vanta, where secrets were currency and betrayal always came in silk gloves. The first time Jungkook killed a man, it wasn't supposed to feel like mercy. He remembered the man's smirk, the threat disguised in charm, and the glint of the blade meant for Jimin. His vision had blurred, time folding into a blur of instinct. And then, a breath later, it was over. The man collapsed like a marionette whose strings had been cut, quietly, without fanfare. But Jungkook's soul didn't stay silent. He hadn't spoken a word since it happened, only grabbed Jimin's arm, pulled him into the black car, and whispered that line, "Don't look back." Jimin's eyes flickered to Jungkook now, seeing more than the blood on his hands. He saw the boy who used to collect cassette tapes just for the sound of film rolling, the man who kissed like he was apologizing for ever breathing too loud, and the fractured soul now running from something he didn't yet understand. What did he say before? Jimin stopped himself. The answer wouldn't change anything. Still, silence wasn't safe anymore. Was it about me? Jungkook blinked, and that tiny motion was a floodgate. A single tear slid down his cheek, chased by a breath so tired it barely made it out of his lungs. "I did it so he wouldn't touch you," Jungkook whispered. His voice was paper-thin, torn at the edges. "So he wouldn't speak your name again." The car swerved slightly as his grip faltered, but Jimin reached out, steadying the wheel and Jungkook's shaking hand at once. The city gave way to shadowed roads. Neon melted into darkened trees and Seoul faded into forgotten hills. Their breath fogged up the windows. Inside the car, time slowed. Two boys, one body left behind, and a truth neither of them could bury, no matter how far they ran. Jimin leaned back, his head resting against the chilled glass. He closed his eyes, not in fear, but in mourning. Not for the man they'd left bleeding behind the club, but for what they were about to become. Then, with a softness that fractured Jungkook more than a scream could have, Jimin whispered, "You didn't need to protect me like that." Jungkook's lip trembled. "But I needed to protect something, anything. I couldn't lose you too." Jimin's chest ached, not from fear, not from guilt, but from recognition. Of the boy who always carried others' burdens until his own knees broke. Of the man who had smiled through bruises just so others wouldn't cry. He didn't ask if Jungkook was okay. That would have been cruel. Instead, he undid his seatbelt, slid closer, and without a word, wrapped his arms around Jungkook's shaking body as the car idled under a fractured streetlight. The warmth of Jimin's hug was quiet but full, aching but sure. It was not forgiveness. It was not absolution. It was simply love. Outside, the storm began to break, leaving behind a hush as raw as their breath. But inside the car, the weight remained, between tired lungs, blood-stained memories, and the silent promise in Jimin's hold. Neither of them spoke again that night. But in the quiet, Jungkook exhaled for the first time in hours. And Jimin didn't let go. Did you mean to kill him? The question hit like shrapnel, too sudden, too raw, and entirely too late. The sun hadn't even risen yet. Pale blue light crept lazily across the sky, not brave enough to illuminate the blood dried under Jungkook's fingernails. They were parked in an abandoned lot miles outside Seoul, the car now silent, engine cold, as if it too were afraid of what had happened inside it. Jimin's voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp, like a scalpel. He wasn't looking at Jungkook. His eyes were locked on the horizon, where fog rolled over trees like a secret refusing to stay buried. No, Jungkook's voice cracked, but I didn't stop myself either. That silence again. It came between them like a third passenger, bloated with memory, guilt, and everything they hadn't dared to say for years. Jimin finally turned. His expression wasn't angry, but it wasn't kind either. It was wounded, knowing. You didn't just kill him, Jungkook, you executed him. Jungkook's fingers curled into fists, but not from rage, from shame. He had a knife, he murmured. I know, Jimin replied, and he didn't get the chance to use it. Something in Jungkook's chest caved in. A memory flared, bare knuckles, a heavy thud, the metallic scent of blood mixing with vodka and cologne. The man's last expression wasn't fear. It was smugness, like he'd won something even in death. Did he tell you what he did? Jungkook asked quietly. Jimin hesitated. He told me what I didn't want to hear. Jungkook's jaw locked. He said I was your weakness. Jimin didn't flinch. He said if he ever wanted to make you suffer, all he had to do was hurt me. That you'd watch and do nothing, just like you did before. He said I was your leash. Jungkook's voice dropped into a growl, low and venomous. And that if you didn't cut it, he would. The pain in Jimin's eyes didn't hide this time. It surfaced like a wound breaking open again. He wasn't wrong, Jimin whispered. That broke Jungkook. He let out a strangled sound, half laugh, half sob. So you knew. I knew he wanted to own you. He wanted to use you against me. And you did nothing. Jimin looked down. I thought I could handle it. You always think that, Jungkook snapped. Until you can't, and someone ends up dead. The air went still. Jungkook regretted it the second it left his mouth, but Jimin didn't yell. He didn't even blink. Instead, he opened the door and stepped out of the car. Jimin, Jungkook started, but Jimin raised a hand. Just give me 5 minutes, he said, not turning around. Before I say something I can't unsay. Jungkook watched him walk into the fog, the outline of his body swallowed slowly by distance and haze. Inside the car, the ghosts multiplied. Every breath Jungkook took felt borrowed. Every second ticked like a countdown to consequences. He leaned his head back against the seat and stared at the roof of the car like it could open up and drop him into some other life. One where he hadn't crushed a man's throat in a fit of fury. One where Jimin didn't look at him like a mirror he wanted to smash. He heard gravel crunch. Jimin was back. But he didn't get in. He leaned against the passenger window, arms crossed, breath still unsteady. I think I was in love with him once, he said. The words sliced through Jungkook's chest like glass. Jimin didn't stop. It was years ago, before he turned into what he did, before I realized what he was. Jungkook looked away. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know that this wasn't just revenge, or justice, or self-defense. You killed someone I used to dream about. Jungkook's mouth went dry. And now? I only dream about you, Jimin said, and this time his voice broke. Jungkook opened the door and stepped out. The cold morning air slapped his face. He didn't care. He walked up to Jimin slowly, his boots crunching gravel, every step measured like a man approaching the edge of something. Then why does it feel like I lost you too? Jungkook asked. Jimin's eyes glistened. Because maybe you did. And just like that, the sky cracked with color, violet bleeding into gray, a bruise on the dawn. Jungkook stepped closer, breath mingling with Jimin's. Do you hate me? He asked, and the tremble in his voice betrayed the child still hiding beneath all his violence. Jimin swallowed. No. Then what? I'm terrified of you. Jungkook staggered back like he'd been shot. His heart thudded in his throat, louder than the wind that picked up around them. "I would never hurt you," he rasped. "You already did." A single tear fell down Jimin's cheek. Jungkook stepped forward again, hands trembling as he reached out, unsure whether to touch or retreat, but Jimin didn't move. "I want to trust you," Jimin said, "but you keep making it harder." "I don't know how to be good anymore," Jungkook admitted, his voice raw. "All I know is you." Jimin exhaled. Then, slowly, he took Jungkook's hand and placed it against his chest. "Then learn again," he said, "starting here." And Jungkook cried. Not the loud, gasping sobs of the guilty, but the quiet, exhausted tears of a man who finally realized what it cost to be loved by someone who knew all your demons and still stayed. For now. They stood there in the mist, heart to heart, broken in different ways but still standing. But love, like violence, always leaves residue, and behind them the past was stirring. Far away, back in Seoul, someone was watching the footage from Club Vanta's hidden camera. The angle was grainy, the audio distorted, but the flash of violence was unmistakable. So was the face. A voice on the other end of the phone said 2 words. "Find him. You need to see this." Taehyung's voice over the phone was tight, clipped, like he'd chewed glass just before calling. He didn't wait for a reply. The video link dropped in the message thread with a soft ping. Jimin stared at it. His thumb hovered above the screen like touching it would explode something buried deep. He and Jungkook were seated at a half-forgotten diner near Daecheung Lake, the kind of place where nobody looked too long at anyone, and silence came with a free refill of coffee. It smelled like grease, old vinyl, and something vaguely nostalgic, like safety that had long since expired. Jungkook was sipping tea in silence, one hand bandaged from the night before. Jimin could feel the tension vibrating off him like static, like his entire body was a wire pulled too tight. "You okay?" Jungkook finally asked, not looking up. "No," Jimin said, "and it's about to get worse." He clicked the video. Grainy footage, a tight hallway behind Club Vanta. The audio was off, but the movement was unmistakable. A figure stepped into frame, Jungkook. Rain-drenched, jaw clenched, eyes black as void. Then him, the man. They spoke. The man smiled, slow, condescending, the same expression that used to make Jimin's skin crawl when they were alone in a room. Jungkook lunged. The video stuttered, skipped frames. And then, hands around the man's throat, the struggle was quick, violent, intimate. The man collapsed. Jungkook didn't run. He stood there, staring at the body. Jimin's blood turned to ice. "You weren't defending yourself," he whispered. Jungkook's head snapped up. "What?" "You weren't scared. You weren't reacting. You chose." The accusation hung between them, sharp as shattered glass. "I told you," Jungkook said slowly, carefully. "He said things. He." "You enjoyed it." Jungkook went still. For the first time, Jimin saw it, truly saw it. The flicker of something dark behind Jungkook's eyes. Not rage, not guilt. Satisfaction. "I felt peace," Jungkook admitted, his voice a ghost. "When he stopped breathing, I felt peace." Jimin pushed away from the table like it had suddenly caught fire. "God damn it, Jungkook." People turned to look. Jimin didn't care. He stood there, fists clenched, jaw shaking. "You lied to me. You said it was a mistake, that you didn't mean to." "I didn't mean for you to see me like that." The honesty in that sentence was worse than any lie. "You crossed a line. You didn't just kill a man, you became one." Jungkook looked up at him, eyes full of something unreadable. "Is that what you see when you look at me now? A monster?" Jimin didn't answer. His silence screamed. Jungkook stood, slowly, carefully, like he wasn't sure if he should apologize or run. "You want to know the truth?" "No, I want it to be undone." "I dreamed about killing him," Jungkook confessed. "For months, I didn't tell you because I thought you'd hate me, and I was right." Jimin's throat burned. "You think this is about hate?" "I think you're afraid of how much of me you recognize in yourself." Jimin froze. The words burrowed into him. They were ugly. They were venomous. They were true. How many nights had Jimin fantasized about revenge? About silence instead of manipulation? How often had he thought, what if someone took care of this for me? And now someone had. You think I wanted this, Jimin whispered. No, but I think part of you needed it, and you hate me for being the part of you that did it. You're not part of me, Jimin said coldly. Not anymore. It was a knife. Jungkook bled instantly. Before either of them could speak again, the door to the diner burst open. A man stepped in, black coat, sunglasses indoors, radio clipped to his shoulder. Jungkook Jeon. Jimin's breath caught. Jungkook raised his hands. Who's asking? The man didn't smile. You're wanted for questioning regarding the death of Kang Yul, Club Vanta security. Please come with me. Jimin stepped forward. He needs a lawyer. The man's gaze flicked to Jimin. Unless you want to be detained too, stay out of it. Jungkook didn't resist. He turned to Jimin, and for a split second his face softened. I'm not sorry, he said. I know, Jimin replied. Then they were gone. Jimin stood in the diner, his hands shaking. The video was still on his phone. It had been leaked anonymously to the authorities, which meant someone else knew, someone else had seen. And they weren't done. Later that night, back in the cold silence of their rented motel, Jimin received a message from an unknown number. It was a photo. A close-up of him taken from across the street, that day at the diner. Beneath it, he's not the only one being watched. You're being followed, Taehyung said, his voice tight as piano wire, moments after Jimin slammed the motel door shut. The photo you got, not from the cops, someone playing a different game. Jimin pressed the phone harder to his ear, packing the narrow room. The floor creaked with every step, the ceiling flickering with a faulty light bulb that buzzed like an insect warning him to flee. The photo was still on his screen. The angle perfection, taken across the street, maybe from a car. Whoever sent it had been close enough to smell his cologne. Who? Jimin snapped. If it's not the police, then who the hell wants Jungkook arrested so badly? Or me, silenced. You want the short list or the honest one, Taehyung exhaled. Because you've made enemies, Jimin, real ones. You think Club Vanta was some playground of flirtations and threats. That place was a damn pipeline. Half the city's underground passes through it. You and Jungkook just kicked open a door people pay to keep shut. Jimin ran his hand through his hair, fingers trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't think you were still that stupid, Taehyung snapped. But I was wrong. Don't, Jimin warned. Not now. Then start listening. You've got maybe 24 hours before someone makes sure Jungkook doesn't get the chance to talk. A breath caught in Jimin's throat. They're going to kill him. Or worse, Taehyung said, use him. The line went dead. Jimin stood there, phone to his ear, the silence like a noose tightening around his neck. Across the city, Jungkook sat in a white room. No windows, no clock, just 4 walls and one blinking red camera in the corner, humming like it knew everything he wanted to hide. The officer wasn't subtle. He was young, ambitious, and probably already halfway to imagining his name on the front page. Jungkook recognized the type. The kind of man who thought justice could be wrung out of people like sweat. Your silence isn't helping you, the officer said, tossing a folder onto the table. It slid, opening just enough to reveal a photo, his own face, caught mid-kill, still and certain. Jungkook didn't blink. I have nothing to say without a lawyer. Oh, but you do, the officer replied. You just think if you say it out loud, it'll become real. That it'll stain you. News flash, it already has. Jungkook's lips curled slightly, not quite a smile. You think I'm afraid of guilt. I think you're afraid someone else will see it, the officer said, leaning closer. Afraid that he will. Jungkook's jaw tensed. The officer saw the reaction and pushed. Jimin, that's his name, right? The one you'd kill for. The one who probably thinks you're still that shy little backup dancer with the sad eyes. Leave him out of this, Jungkook said, his voice low and dangerous. But he's already in it. We have footage, Mr. Jeon. He's in the background of the murder scene. Maybe he wasn't holding the knife, but proximity changes things, especially when there's motive, especially when there's history. Jungkook's hands clenched. He could feel the urge building, like static behind his ribs. "You want me to tell you something," he said slowly. The officer leaned in. Jungkook smiled dark, unblinking. "If you ever say his name like that again, I will peel your throat with my teeth." The chair scraped as the officer stood abruptly. The room went cold. Outside the station, Jimin stood in the shadows, hood up, eyes scanning. He'd hacked his way past 2 security checkpoints and a firewall, thanks to Taehyung's guidance and a USB drive labeled wedding playlist that was anything but. He didn't have a plan, just desperation. He needed to see Jungkook, just once, just to confirm he was still himself. The lights flickered in the hallway. Then Jimin heard it, voices, coming closer, and one of them was unmistakable. Jungkook. He was being transferred. Jimin moved on instinct. A hallway, a service corridor, a cleaning cart left carelessly near an exit. He stepped out, just enough for Jungkook to see him as the guards passed. Their eyes met. Everything stopped. No handcuffs, no guards, no cameras could interfere with the moment of sheer electricity between them. Jimin's eyes said, "Are you okay?" Jungkook replied, "I don't know anymore." The guards didn't notice, but someone else did. A tall woman, dressed in a suit too expensive for someone just passing by, leaned against the wall as if bored. Her eyes locked onto Jimin. "You're him," she said, "the reason he snapped." Jimin froze. "Don't worry," she said, stepping forward, her smile thin and sharp. "I'm not with the police." "Then who are you?" "Someone who thinks it's a shame. A man like Jungkook, so full of potential, rotting in a cell, when he could be so much more." Jimin's blood ran cold. "What do you want?" She tilted her head. "You, of course, you're the key, you're the weight. Remove you and he's free." Jimin stepped back. "You're not getting anywhere near him." "Oh, darling," she said, laughing. "You don't understand, I don't need to. You're going to walk away yourself." "And why the hell would I do that?" She handed him a phone. The screen lit up. It was a live feed. His sister, bound, blindfolded, breathing. Jimin's world collapsed. The woman leaned in. "You walk or she dies, and Jungkook, he'll never even know you existed." Jimin stared at the screen, breath shattered. Then slowly, like surrender tasted like poison, he nodded. The woman smiled. "Good boy." And just like that, the game reset. But this time, Jimin wasn't just trying to save Jungkook. He was trying to save everyone, including the part of himself that still believed love didn't always destroy the people it touched. "You look like shit," Taehyung muttered, dragging Jimin into the back of an unmarked van parked under a broken streetlight. The Seoul air was thick with smog and desperation, but the shadows moved cleaner than the truth these days. Jimin didn't answer. His eyes were hollow, fixed on the screen in his hand. The live feed had stopped 15 minutes ago. Black screen, no sound, just silence so loud it pressed against his chest like guilt with a knife. "Who took her?" Taehyung demanded. "And don't give me that quiet martyr act. You had blood on your lip when you called." "She said," Jimin's voice cracked, "she said I was the leash, that if I left, Jungkook could be free, that this is what I caused." Taehyung slammed the side of the van with his fist. "No, she's manipulating you. She wants to unmoor him. You're not the leash, you're the anchor." Jimin finally looked up. "And what happens when the anchor breaks?" Taehyung opened his mouth, then stopped, because he didn't have an answer, not one Jimin would believe. "They're using Jungkook's arrest as bait," Taehyung said, sliding into the driver's seat and tossing a burner phone into Jimin's lap. "Whoever's pulling the strings knows exactly how deep your connection goes. They're not trying to kill him, Jimin. Not yet. They're trying to weaponize him." Jimin's blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "I mean they want him to burn everything down. The man who killed for love. Imagine what he'll do when he thinks that love left him." Jimin's voice was barely a whisper. "He'll kill again." "No," Taehyung said. He'll become something else, something irreversible. Jimin looked down at the burner phone, the one the woman had given him. A message blinked on screen. You have 36 hours. Walk away, or the girl dies and Jungkook never gets out alive. He exhaled, ragged and trembling. Back inside the detainment center, Jungkook stared at the concrete wall across from his cot. His cellmate had been removed after a brief altercation that left the man limping and swearing vengeance. Jungkook hadn't even raised his voice. He didn't need to. The footage had gone public. Every news outlet had blurred faces, but not names. Kang Yeol dead, Jungkook Jeon in custody, Park Jimin under scrutiny, Club Vanta under federal investigation. And all of it lies wrapped in fragments of truth. He remembered Jimin's face in the corridor. Brief, beautiful, terrified. He hadn't reached out, not because he didn't want to, but because something in Jimin's expression had whispered, "Goodbye." Now, alone in this cell, with only regret for company, Jungkook couldn't stop replaying every moment that had led here. The first time Jimin ever touched his wrist during a rehearsal and said, "You're burning up, slow down." The first time they shared a cigarette behind a club, hands trembling more from what they didn't say than from nicotine. The first time, Jungkook realized that Jimin wasn't his weakness. He was the only part of him that still felt human. So when the door to his cell opened that night, no warning, no guards, Jungkook tensed immediately. A woman stepped in, the same one who'd threatened Jimin. Her voice was like ice brushing against skin. "You've been quiet." "I was taught not to talk to ghosts," Jungkook replied. She smiled. "Good, you haven't lost your spine." Jungkook rose slowly. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you." He narrowed his eyes. "Are you police?" "I'm whoever holds your key. I'm the reason you're still breathing, not rotting in a maximum security pit." She took a step closer. "And I'm the only one who can get you out." Jungkook's fists clenched. "Why would you do that?" "Because you're valuable," she said simply. "You've already proven what you're capable of. Passion, precision, loyalty, wrath. I'm not your assassin." "You're not yet, but you could be. What else do you have now? That pretty boy you loved walked away, your life's ashes. The world already thinks you're a monster. Why not become one on purpose?" Jungkook looked down at his hands. "Is Jimin safe?" he asked. The woman raised an eyebrow. "That depends." "On what?" "On how well you take orders." The rage rose fast, a storm behind his ribs. "If you touch him." "You won't know until it's too late," she said coolly. "Unless you do what I ask." Jungkook's breath trembled. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to burn the name that made you soft. I want you to become what they all think you are. And I want you to start with the people who used to call you brother." She dropped a file onto the floor. Inside, photos of men, names, locations. People from their past. Jungkook stared at it, breathing like a man drowning slowly. She leaned in. "You don't have to decide now, but you will." And then she was gone. Back in the van, Jimin traced the outline of a scar on his hand, the one Jungkook had stitched up for him after a training injury years ago. He could still feel the ghost of those hands, the care, the silence between them that had always said more than words. 36 hours, he muttered. Taehyung nodded grimly. "Then we go get her." Jimin turned, eyes wild. "We?" "You think I'm letting you walk into this alone?" Taehyung scoffed. "I may not have killed for you, but I've bled for less." They stared at each other, past and present colliding in the dust and fear and memory. Jimin nodded once. "Then let's start a war." And somewhere behind locked walls, Jungkook whispered to the empty dark, "Don't wait for me." But Jimin already was. Because love doesn't bleed. But people do. You think you're the only one hurting. Jimin's voice cut through the silence of the abandoned cathedral like glass under a boot. His breath fogged in the bitter air, and the stained glass above fractured the morning light into bleeding colors across the cracked altar. Taehyung was crouched nearby, loading bullets into a pistol with the casual efficiency of someone who didn't need to ask why. Pain doesn't give you immunity to consequence, Taehyung said flatly. Jimin turned to him slowly. She has my sister, and Jungkook. She wants me to let them both fall apart like dominoes, like it's inevitable. I won't be a passenger in that story. Taehyung's eyes met his. Then what's your plan? Jimin exhaled sharply. Bait the queen. How? I disappear. Taehyung's expression shifted. You really want to play dead, Jimin? She wants me out of the picture. Fine, I'll give her that, but not without burning her from the inside first. Outside, the snow had started falling in whispers, soft and deceptive. Inside, war was already humming. In another part of the city, beneath a luxury tower dressed as anonymity, Jungkook sat across from the woman again, her name finally revealed as Seo Ra-hyun. She wore black leather gloves despite the heat of the room, and everything about her screamed design. Her posture, her smile, her cruelty. It was all rehearsed, and that was what made it terrifying. You knew him, Jungkook said quietly, staring at the photo she'd left out for him. The man he killed, Kang Yul, except in this photo he wasn't a predator. He was laughing, younger, arms around someone who looked hauntingly like Jimin. Ra-hyun leaned back, crossing her legs. He was my brother. Jungkook blinked. What? Half-brother, she corrected. Different fathers, same family, same rot. She leaned forward, eyes unblinking. He loved Jimin, obsessively, but Jimin chose you, and so he broke him in every way he could, until you killed him. Jungkook's throat tightened. Then why are you punishing me? I freed him from your brother. You don't understand love, she said with venom. You think love is saving someone. I think it's letting them burn for you. Jungkook flinched. You're insane. No, she said, standing. I'm grieving, and grief needs a shape, you're mine. She left the room, but her words stayed like poison. Across town, Jimin was already in motion, a new identity in his pocket, a signal jammer in his bag. Taehyung had set him up with fake credentials, even altered his appearance slightly, darker contacts, a shift in posture, a new voice when he spoke. Not enough to fool people who knew him, but enough to pass through enemy doors. He walked into Ra-hyun's shell corporation under the name Lee Min-seok. He became a ghost among her staff, a whisper through systems. And slowly, he planted seeds, data disruptions, false logs, and a backdoor route to her surveillance grid. All of it while watching his sister's feed, now looped footage. He didn't know if she was alive. He only knew he was running out of time. And that Jungkook had stopped appearing on any surveillance entirely. That night, Jimin sat alone in the maintenance corridor of the building's basement, hands shaking as he opened a secure terminal. God, please be alive, he whispered. Miss me. The voice didn't come from the screen. It came from behind him. Jimin spun, gun raised, heart trying to crawl up his throat. Jungkook stood in the shadows, gaunt, bruised, but smiling. Jungkook, Jimin whispered. What, how? I escaped, Jungkook said. Or rather, she let me. She wanted me to find you. She's watching, even now. Jimin looked around, eyes wild. This is a trap. I know, Jungkook said, and we're going to flip it. Jimin lowered the gun, but his hand trembled. Are you? Still you? Jungkook stepped closer slowly. I don't know. Don't lie to me. I'm scared of what I've become, Jungkook said, but not when I'm with you. They stood inches apart. Jimin's eyes were red. I thought you hated me, he said. I hated everything that made you walk away, Jungkook said, but never you. Jimin let out a strangled sound. She showed me a video. You on your knees, covered in blood. You didn't look like someone grieving. I wasn't grieving, Jungkook said, voice hollow. I was remembering the day I almost lost you, the way it would have felt to be too late, and I let that break something in me. I should have stopped you, Jimin whispered. No, Jungkook said. You should have saved yourself. The air between them cracked with emotion. Neither of them moved. Then Jungkook reached into his coat and pulled out a drive. She made me kill again, or tried to. These are the recordings. Everything, her conversations, her leverage. She's not just avenging her brother, Jimin. She's building an empire of broken men. Jimin stared at it. How did you get this? I was her prototype, Jungkook said. She trusted me until I made her believe I was hers. Jimin took the drive, holding it like a matchbook in a room soaked in gasoline. Then let's burn her, he said. Jungkook smiled bitterly. Together. Jimin looked into his eyes. Always. From the rooftop above, Rahyun watched the grainy footage on her tablet, courtesy of a drone she'd sent out hours earlier. She smiled. They think they've found each other again, she murmured. Let them. Beside her, a man in a black suit stood silent. When love rebuilds itself, Rahyun whispered, that's when it's most satisfying to crush. And below, as snow continued to fall, and two souls tried to stitch themselves back together, the storm waited. It always did. The warehouse was dead quiet, except for the wind slicing through the broken slats in the wall. A place forgotten by time at the edge of Seoul's industrial graveyard. This was where it would end, not in a courtroom, not on a front page, but here in the rot of concrete, in the shadows of regret, surrounded by things too painful to carry into tomorrow. Jimin stood in the center, clutching the flash drive like a heartbeat. Taehyung was upstairs, watching the perimeter through the cracked lens of a stolen thermal drone. Every exit was wired. Every possibility had been accounted for, except emotion. Except Jungkook. He stood to Jimin's right, dressed in black, breathing like a man preparing to die. Not because he wanted to, but because it felt like the only thing left that might be enough. Not revenge. Not salvation. Just enough. She'll come, he said. I know, Jimin replied, his voice flat. If this goes wrong. No, Jimin snapped, turning to him. Don't say it. Don't start saying goodbye. We've done that too many times. Jungkook searched his face. Then say something else, something real. Jimin hesitated, then, voice cracking, I still love you, even after all this. Even though I hate what you've done. Even though I can't look at your hands without remembering. I still love you. Jungkook swallowed hard. Then I'll die trying to be someone who deserves it. The steel doors groaned open. Rahyun walked in alone. Her presence soaked the air like poison. She didn't carry a weapon. She didn't need one. Her smile was sharper than any blade. Well, she said, her heels echoing on the concrete. The prodigals, together at last, and still so tragically naive. Jimin took a step forward. It's over, I have everything, the recordings, the backups, your network's bleeding. She tilted her head. You think I care about exposure, about consequences? You still don't get it. I don't want to hide anymore. I want the world to see what I built. You built nothing but a graveyard, Jungkook growled. I built clarity, she hissed. What are we without the freedom to act on the violence we carry? You, Jungkook, you tasted it. You thrived in it. Don't lie to him now. I'm not that man anymore. No, she sneered. You're worse, because now you lie to yourself. Jimin held up the drive. This ends with you on your knees, Rahyun, not us. She laughed, soft and cruel. Then pull the trigger. Silence. No one moved. Then a gunshot. It wasn't from Jimin. Rahyun staggered, eyes wide. From above, Taehyung stood on the balcony, smoking gun still in hand. You talk too much, he said. Rahyun collapsed, blood pooling fast beneath her. She reached for Jimin's ankle with one final twitch of defiance, but there was nothing left. No war, no vengeance, just the cold. Taehyung descended the stairs as Jungkook knelt beside her body, checking for signs of life. None. She was gone. Jimin turned to the wall and braced himself, trembling. It's done. No, Jungkook said, standing. Now it begins. In the days that followed, the drive was leaked. The recordings made national headlines. Names fell. An empire crumbled. Seoul watched itself in the mirror and recoiled. But the story of Jungkook and Jimin was not one the world could understand. They disappeared from the city. Some said they fled to Jeju. Others claimed they changed their names, opened a small bookstore near the sea. But the truth was quieter. One morning, months later, in a coastal village where no one asked questions, Jungkook sat by a window, scribbling in a notebook. Jimin was in the kitchen, humming a song no one remembered the name of. Outside, the tide came in. Warm. Patient. Like forgiveness. Jungkook looked up as Jimin entered the room, 2 mugs in hand. Nightmare again, Jimin asked gently. Not this time, Jungkook replied. What was it? Jungkook looked out at the ocean, where waves erased footprints before they ever settled. It was a memory, but this time you stayed. Jimin sat beside him, resting his head on Jungkook's shoulder. They didn't speak for a long time. And they didn't need to. Because some wars don't end in explosions. They end in the quiet decision to stay. To choose warmth. To choose each other. Even after everything. Especially after everything.